Thank you everyone for coming to episode 7 of Sendbird's Code Cafe. My name is Jason Koo. I am one of our developer advocates, and today I'll be introducing you to Sendbird's Flutter SDK. And we also have some special guests who will be around during the Q&A to answer some questions. I'll introduce Mickey and Wu officially later. So for those of you who have attended our Code Cafes in the past, we usually have a guest. Today you're kind of stuck with me because well, I really enjoy Flutter. I really like working with Flutter, so I get to be the MC and kind of the presenter today. Before I dive in too deeply, I want to mention that we have the three winners, the people who kind of signed in the earliest, was Modi. Manav, definitely tell me if I'm mispronouncing your name. Sandeep Mutta and Richard Kangui. Am I pronouncing that right, Richard? I feel like I'm totally butchering your last name. Okay, well, if you want to correct me later, by all means. Okay, so thank you three for showing up early and having a kind of a light conversation with us prior to our start. Okay, so let me jump right into this by sharing my screen. So again, introducing Sendbird's Flutter SDK. And real quickly, the agenda that we're going through today is I'm going to talk real briefly about Flutter, why you want to use it, the Sendbird, our features in the Sendbird Flutter SDK, how to quickly get started. And if we have time, I'll show off the official sample app that you can download and actually run. That's more comprehensive than the getting started demo that we'll be learning today. And then finally ending with the Q&A. So the whole first 1 through 4, we're hoping to get squeezed in the next 28 minutes. So we'll jump right in here. Okay, so what is Flutter? If you happen to not know what Flutter is a multi-platform development framework that Google has developed for originally developing apps to deploy onto iOS and Android applications. It has since expanded to be able to deploy to web instances and also for native desktop apps, so Linux, Windows, and Mac OS. And all this, of course, like many other cross-platform development systems, is intended to be done from a single code base. In Flutter's case, it's Dart, which is not probably well known across many developers, but anyone who's familiar with JavaScript, Swift, or Android Kotlin will be very comfortable with Dart. And then one of the big reasons Flutter has become so popular is it's quite performant. Right, it's not as performant as native. That's very tough to beat, but it's marginally slower than native, especially compared to React Native, which is seems to be several magnitudes slower than Flutter or native. And then some other things that kind of make Flutter really popular is it's open source. According to Google and Stack Overflow, it's increasing in popularity. A lot of people are jumping onto it. And of course, it is backed by Google. So even though it is open source, Google has a large team and a lot of funding, and they continue to really promote Flutter. So if you watched Google I/O this year, they had a big Flutter 2 announcement, finally made web an official channel option versus just kind of experimental. So okay, so that's Flutter in a nutshell. Now, Sendbird's Flutter SDK, what Sendbird brings to the table for a Flutter application. So for putting chat into a Flutter application, a Sendbird system is very scalable, very reliable. There are 8 global data centers around the world. So wherever your users are, they'll have a low latency, very high performant experience, and we're secure, right? We're SOC 2, we're ISO 27001, HIPAA, and GDPR compliant. So security is definitely top of mind for our team. So again, scalable and very secure. Now, features that, if you're not familiar with Sendbird, some of the features that we bring is giving you multiple channel options. So when you are connecting users together to talk within some sort of communications thread, we call those channels. And we have 3 different channels that we offer and that the Flutter SDK supports. First is the open channel, which is kind of like a live cast public forum. So anyone with your app, using your app ID, can join these open channels. So in a way, if you were, say, building a conference app, then the main stage could be like an open channel. Groups support fewer users. So open channels support up to 1,000. Group supports about 100, but it gives you a lot of extra features. So you can create private rooms and public rooms. So public rooms are similar to open channels in that anyone can kind of join, but private, as you can imagine, would be similar to like a closed WhatsApp channel between you and a few friends, or you and particular people, a doctor, or any smaller group, one-on-one or groups. Other features that group channels offer over open is you can have multiple sorting orders for when the data is coming in. You can sort your messages in a different way. It's got read receipts, it's got typing indicators, it's got reactions, so you can do emojis, and push notifications are supported for group channels. Now, the last channel we have is supergroups, which is, as it sounds, it's a much larger group channel. So it kind of not only bridges the gap, but kind of exceeds the gap with open channels, where open has 1,000 users, group has 100, supergroups can support up to 2,000 users. So kind of gives you the best of both worlds. Okay, push notifications, which is one of the features that is supported within group and supergroups. Both Firebase cloud messaging service and Apple's push notification service are supported by Sendbird system. Also within the Flutter SDK, we have message threading. So just like in Slack, if you have someone who wants to create a thread from a single response, you can start that sort of chain. And just like Slack, it'll go one deep and you can keep adding to that. And event handlers is another great feature with the Flutter SDK. This, we have basically 3 different event handlers that you can tap into. One is the users, which basically tells you if what their total and read count, I believe, is the one hook for users at the moment. Channel I'll come back to, and then there's the connection event handler, which basically tells you if your app has lost connection to Sendbird, or if it's reattempting or has basically lost connection with Sendbird. And then the channels event handler is the big lion's share of the event handlers. So you can get all sorts of updates, messages when a new message comes in, once it gets deleted, gets updated. If a user comes in, if a user leaves, if a channel metadata changes, basically the bulk of any sort of development work you're going to do is probably going to use one of the channel event handlers. Okay. The next feature that we've got is metadata that you can add to both users and channels. So the metadata is super useful for allowing you to further embed chat with your application. So you could use metadata for simple things like UI updates, right? So if you want to change the background of particular channels for particular communications between 2 people, like they have a custom image, or you want to change the fonts, those are sort of UI options you could do when tying in metadata. You could also do something that's more unique to your app. I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but say you're doing like a telemedicine app and you want to associate some perhaps medical data in there is not so good, but you could associate some extra data that ties in with your app, so it gives a kind of more seamless experience. You would use metadata for. Okay, all right. So that left me with 10, 20 minutes to do the demo. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now, really quick, is I'm going to show you how you can add the Sendbird's Flutter SDK into a brand new app. And what we're going to do is very basic, of course, because we've got a limited time to work with. What we're going to do is I'm going to use a UI library that can render the chat experience. For Flutter, there are a number of plugins already available that do this. And the one I'll be using today is called Dash Chat. And the reason for this is just mainly for time, right? Because for us to kind of demo building the entire chat experience would take quite a bit of time. And likely if you have your own app, you'll have a chat UI possibly already spec'd out. But anyways, hooking it up would be very similar regardless of what sort of plugin or UI, pre-existing UI that you have. Okay, so while I get set up, I'm going to leave this resource up here. So if you want to jump right into Flutter, we've got both our developer portal and the official docs. So in the docs has the Flutter install guide, getting started, and all the API guides. The developer portal is a good starting point if you haven't worked with Sendbird before to get, kind of get familiar with Sendbird's backend, our different objects and our different protocols. it has lots of videos and tutorials to help you get started. So definitely a combo of the two is usually great if you want to get started. Okay, so now would probably be a good time to ask for questions. So if you do have questions, definitely put it in the chat and we will get to it during the Q&A section, just so I can get this demo part done very quickly. But yeah, so put it in the chat, or if you just remember, you can shoot off anything when we get to that point. Okay, can you see my terminal screen? Okay, perfect. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to create a new Flutter project. So we'll call this Code Cafe. Okay, so Flutter will create a new templated app. And what we'll do is, I like Visual Studio Code, so I will spin it up there. Okay, and as typical, when you create a Flutter app, it gives you kind of this starter app, which we'll ignore for now because we're going to completely gut this. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put in the UI dependency, just so I can spin that up and show you what the app is basically going to look like when we're done. So what we're going to do here is, Sendbird, I want dash chat. So this is the UI library that, or UI plugin that I'll be using, dash chat. Okay, so dependencies for Flutter apps goes into the pubspec YAML file. So let's put this in here. Save. If you're using Visual Studio Code, anytime you edit the pubspec YAML file, it will automatically pull down the package that it needs. Okay, let's make this a little simpler. Okay, I'm gonna grab this import statement, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a whole new file, and I'll just call it chat screen. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna create a single file that could be dropped into anybody else's application. So the idea is, here is if your app already has some way of connecting users. So say it is a marketplace and you have a buyer and a seller, and you just want to kick off a chat between the buyer and the seller. That chat screen, that's what we're going to demonstrate today. So we're not going to go through a whole process of creating an app that actually does something, right? Like a telemedicine app, a dating app. We're going to show just the chat bit that you could drop in at the moment that you want to click, hey, I want to talk to this individual. So this presumes that your app has unique identifiers for the two different users that you're going to connect. Okay, all right, so let me put this import statement in here. And then we also have to bring in Flutter's, we'll do the material. Okay, so also if you're using Visual Studio Code, you can use some code shortcuts. We will create a stateful widget. We'll just call this chat screen. And you can see the snippet just creates a boilerplate for stuff. Okay, so we're going to create an empty dash chat. So this will just be an empty chat window. And dash chat requires 3 properties: messages, so let's put an empty array there, a user, which is of an object type chat user, and the chat user itself needs 3 properties: UID, name, and an avatar URL. And then the last thing would be an on-send handler. So what should it do when it gets when you type in a new message? Okay, so if we just hook this up, we will get a very blank app, but something that you can see. I'll replace this with chat screen. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this in Flutter. And if you have devices or simulators running, if you type in Flutter devices into the command line, it will pull up the IDs for all those devices. So here I've got an iPhone 12 mini. I'll just use that. So Flutter run -d. Unfortunately, Flutter's system is fairly smart, so you don't have to actually enter that giant, was it like 36 character long ID? You can just put in whatever is, no, I'm not in the right. No, pubspec YAML file. Did I? Oh. in my project the same name as my parent folder. That way I could confuse myself for sure. Okay, so Flutter run d 90. So like I was saying, Flutter's run command will just pull, you just need the minimum number of characters that differentiate it from all your other simulators and devices. So could have just used 9 and it probably would have worked. Okay, this will take about, I don't know, half a minute to build for the first time. After it builds, one of Flutter's unique features is the ability to hot reload. So once I'm inside and coding up, I can just do a Shift-R and hot reload and not have to rebuild, which is very handy during UI development or any just general development. But you have to remember that when you're not building, then it doesn't keep, right? So if you were to run the app in your simulator afterwards, it would have the very first time that you ran. Okay, so I know what I did. I need to, in a material app, you got to wrap everything in, not wrap everything, but you should wrap your app into a scaffold object, which kinds of, oops. So do that, do a hot reload and see if that works. Good. And just to make this a little nicer to look at, we'll add an app bar since it looks a little too blank. Sendbird demo. Okay, so you can see here, here's the chat, although there's no chats to display. You can see though here we've got the actual input bar. So hello, which won't do anything since that's also not hooked up. But this is what we get with a very blank dash chat screen. Okay, so now to really make something happen, we want to add in Sendbird. So if you were to go to pub.dev, Sendbird SDK is here. And just gonna add this dependency under dash chat anymore. And I'm going to give my colleagues minor heart attack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the null safety pre-release, which is still being worked on, but should be available within the next few weeks officially. So if you're not familiar with Flutter, one of the big updates that came this year with Flutter was adding in null safety, which puts it on a similar feature parity with Swift and Kotlin. But prior to that, no null safety. So the current released version of Sendbird's Flutter SDK is a non-null safe version, and the pre-release is null safe. Okay, so that dependency's in. I'm going to grab this import statement to our chat screen. Doing time. Okay, good. Okay, so now we've got access to the Sendbird SDK. The first thing we're going to want to do is initialize the Sendbird SDK, connect with it, and then pull in information related with the current user. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm just going to create a load function, and this is just going to attempt and hopefully succeed to initialize and to set up the Sendbird SDK. So if we have a problem, I'll just print it out. I don't expect any problems. So to init and connect to Sendbird, we're going to create a Sendbird property, and we will just. So to spin up the Sendbird SDK, we just need the app ID. And where we get the app ID is in your dashboard. If you log in, if you haven't been here before, you can create a new application or select an existing application. And once you're in a particular app, you can just copy the application ID here in your dashboard. So you take that application ID and you would put that into here. So we could hard code this, but I'll replace this actually later with something else. Actually, we'll just do it now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that this class object can take any app ID or user IDs that you want to put in so that it can be dropped in a little bit better. So we're going to add a string for app ID. And while we're here, we're going to retain the user ID of the current user. So normally this will be set up by your login process. And then we'll do a list of strings for other user IDs. So these are the other people you'll be talking to. Oh, did somebody say something? No. Okay. Okay. So to make this work, we definitely need the app ID. Oops. App ID. We definitely need user ID, and we definitely want to know who we're going to be talking to. So we're going to go this required. So when we do this, we're going to update our call from the main screen. So we're going to add here, and we're going to make the user ID. Let's make it myself. And I have pre-existing conversations with another colleague, Tanaka, so I'll just add her. Okay, so we're just taking that information, we're storing it into this property for this class, and then we'll use it down here. And to call that, this widget ID. Okay, so back to where we were. We're initializing the Sendbird SDK, and then we're going to connect to it. Okay, so to connect, we do a async command to Sendbird. Connect just using the user ID, which we get from the parent widget. So it's an async class. Okay. So the connect function, it returns an instance of a Sendbird user. In this case, we don't need to retain the user. So I'm just setting it to this I forget what they call this. It's a property that it tells it that we're not intending to use this variable at all. Okay, so after we connect to Sendbird, here are the steps that we need. So we are going to get any existing channel between the two users, right? So in this case, between me and Tanaka. If a channel doesn't exist, we'll create a new channel. And after the channel, we will get the messages that are associated with the channel. And once that's done, we will just set a property of a class. So we'll set the state or set the data. So we are going to add just two properties to the class to retain some information for ease of use later. The first one will be a list of base messages. So Sendbird's message object class, the parent class is a base message. So we'll initialize it to an empty array. Then the other thing we're going to want to hold on to is the group channel. As a convenience. Make that optional. Okay. All right. So we're going to make these calls, and then we're going to set these properties here, messages and channel. Okay. So to get an existing channel, we're going to create what's known as a query object, right? So channel list query. And for this query, just to keep things simple, we're just going to grab one. So we're going to grab the first of whatever. If Sendbird does support multiple channels between even the same users, so you could have different contexts, right? But for our use case, we'll imagine it's a dating app, and you only have one message stream with this person, and we need to know who's involved in this conversation. So user exact. I don't remember user exact user something. Exact user exact. Oh no, user ID. Oh, okay. My memory has failed me. Okay, so I'll come back and fill that in there. Anyways, there's a property to set who we're going to look for. So I'll come back to that. Okay, so. So to get the channel from that, we're going to run a load next function off the query, which actually returns the channel if we're interested. So now, if this actually returns a list of channels. So if the oh goodness. Let's do this. Channel. So if the returned channels is 0, that means no existing channel exists, and we're going to create a new one. Oops. To create a channel, let's do this here. Channel. channel. Channel equals, okay, so here, group channels create is the command we want. Group channels create. Oh no.
Open channel.
Oh, is that you? Group channel create. Yeah. Oh, that's weird. Okay. So we create channel and it takes as an argument a group channel query. Channel list query.
So it's a prom.
Channel params? Yes. Okay. And here we just want the user IDs that we're going to assign here. Now this one's a little bit different than the query. The query only needs the other users that you're planning on talking to, right? Because the SDK already knows who the current user is. But when you're creating a group channel, you have to explicitly add in the current user because you could technically, and tell me if I'm wrong, Will, you could technically create channels for other users, right? Like, so if you're like, you know, kind of like an admin or something. So here we'll do the other, oops, widget, user IDs, and we'll just, let's kind of be hacky about this. We'll combine it with another array with just the user ID. Channel. Okay. Cool. And then, of course, if we already have an existing channel, we'll just return. We'll just take that. So, yes. Before I forget, let's go and finish this one off. So, includes. Why is it my?
Hey, Jason, you're using open channel list query.
Wait, what was that?
You're using open channel list query. You should use a group channel list query.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's why. Okay, thank you. Second. Ah, thank you. So widget, other user IDs. Okay, cool. Okay, so that's our query correctly done. And here is if we need to create a new channel, and then we got a channel. Okay, so now that we have a channel, let's get the messages from it. Let's do this message. Channels, no, messages. Okay, so we're going to call a channel. This is why we want to retain this later, so we can call this again if we need to. So get messages, and we'll do it by timestamp. Just because I like to choose the longest option. Now, and it takes two. This function takes two arguments. One is the timestamp, and in seconds. Timestamp at doc. Milliseconds. Timestamp. Milliseconds. I just confused myself. Oh no, date time now. Sorry. Seconds from epoch, and then we got to time this by 1,000 to make it seconds. And this goes. Channel list query, was it? No, we're in messages, so we want message list params, and I think we can go with just the defaults. This is also async, I believe. Yep. Okay. So, right, if this is successful, we'll grab messages. If not, it'll bail out. Okay, so now here, we're just going to set those properties from 4. Set state. So I'm going to set the messages to messages, and also the channel to a channel. Okay. Let's make that smaller. Okay, so now, if I were to run it, actually nothing would happen because we haven't called the load command. So what we're going to do is we're going to, let's say we'll call this here. We'll load up here, and while we're here, we'll add a dispose because that's good practice. And we'll come back and use these. Okay, so now if I run this, it will connect to Sendbird, but you won't actually see anything because we haven't hooked it up to the chat UI yet. So to do that, we'll start with the, so we need to fill in messages. So we need to convert Sendbird messages into dash messages. And then Sendbird current user to a dash chat user. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to return the dash chat user, which is a chat user object. So I'm just going to call this as dash chat user from Sendbird user. So the Sendbird user is object is just user. Okay, so in the event that user is null, we will just return a blank chat user. Otherwise, we will return a proper chat user. ID. Fortunately, the Sendbird user ID maps up to this really well. So we also have a UID, just user ID. Name, you can use the user nickname. And for avatar, our version is the profile URL. Okay, and that's it for dash chat user. So here, we can now replace this with the SDKs. Oops. I should make use of that function as dash chat user, Sendbird SDK, current user. So this could be empty if we haven't initialized, in which case we'll just return the empty chat user like we did before. Okay, next thing we'll do is we are going to get a message. We are going to return a list of dash chat friendly messages from Sendbird messages. So dash chat messages from list again of our base message. And for this one, I'm not entirely sure what this is called in Flutter. I kind of this kind of looks like a Python list comprehensions to me, but basically we're going to create an array by running a for loop internally in it. So base message. So Sendbird message messages. So every time it runs through each one of the messages, we're just going to return a chat message, which is dash chat's message object type. And it takes us two properties. Text, which the Sendbird message is Sendbird message, it's just a message property, and then the user. So this one we need to convert again the Sendbird user to a dash chat user. So here is the messages sender. Okay. Right. So now we can replace messages with as dash chat messages, the messages property. So again, here we're just feeding in the Sendbird messages that we retained and then converting that all into dash chat messages. Okay, so now if I were to rerun this, we should see an existing message chain that I've played around with before. Channel. Okay. Cool. Okay, so we can see here that that it's able to pull existing messages just fine. Now, we're probably a little bit over time here. Angeline, so I could spend another 10 minutes to show how to hook up the rest of this, which would be the event handler, which is actually kind of important. Actually, you know what? I'll do that real quick, and then we'll just call it a day. All right. So to be able to hook into all the information stream coming from the SDK, you're going to want to extend this state class with the channel event handler. And when you have that, you have to assign this class, you have to tell the SDK that this is an event handler class. So Sendbird SDK add channel event handler, and you can give it any identifier. I'll just call it chat, and just identify this as the class that is an event handler. And then of course, when you dispose, you gotta clean this up. Remove channel handler and chat. Okay, once you do this, you now have access to a lot of additional options here. So again, this was the giant list of channel list feature options that I kind of rattled off at the beginning. But again, it'll tell you things like when user comes in, when user leaves, when messages get updated, so on and so forth. Here, I will just do when new message is received. If a new message is received, then what we'll do is we will just add it to our messages queue, messages property, messages and message. So if I were to run that again, oh, did I forget something? Okay, well, we'll see if this works. That's partially done. Okay, so what I've got here on this left is this is the official sample app that Woo created. And so this is much more involved than what we showed today. And what I'll do here is I will sign in as Tanaka. So this one has a kind of, it's not like a full login authentication, but a different way to assign a user rather than hard coding. And then here in the official sample app, you can see all the different channels that a user is attached to, and you can even create ones, create new ones, and I think you could delete as well. No, not delete yet. But if I click here, you can see that this is the same conversation as the one I have on my simpler demo. So if I were to add in a new message here, it will hopefully show up in this one here. We can see here that the onMessage receive handler was effective. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to stop there. But as you can see where I'm going from here, I would just be adding in additional event handlers and then tying that to the dash chat so that it would be in sync with Sendbird. Okay, so now we should move into Q&A since I've totally used up all our time. Okay, I'll leave. Actually, I'll just turn off my screen. Okay, so if anybody's got he's got their camera or their mics on, you can ask a question directly. Otherwise, I am going to go through the chat window. Oh, okay. So Woo has answered quite a few questions here. Woo, were there any questions that you saw that would be helpful to kind of repeat since the chat questions don't come with the video recording later? It might be a good chance for us to kind of repeat it just so that everyone else in the future can learn more about the library.
I guess so. Sendbird SDK it does not have any UI component part. So we do have a UI kit for iOS, Android, and other platforms, but we don't have a UI kit for Flutter. So SDK just support the core, the messaging feature part. Doesn't have a UI, any related UI components yet. Just to make sure everyone understand what the SDK is provided. And then, so for example, the so someone asked, is send location supported? So it's basically, it's up to you to implement it, what you want to send it. Like, so if you want to send a location with the message, you can leverage with the data field or the custom type field that you add as let's say this message is a location message. It's user message, but also contains location information. And you add any location or additional information to data field, and then you can leverage that field to implement a UI. Yep. That's it, I guess. And Sendbird SDK is a singleton. Yes, it is singleton. Can we check iOS notification in background? For notification part, have you tried the push notification for iOS, Jason?
Using Flutter? No, I haven't. That's actually next on my my list of things to do.
All right. I actually tested last time I tested, it worked with the Firebase messaging, that version before they support the Flutter 2 part. Because the recent Firebase version, they add a feature that support the background notification for iOS. I haven't tested yet. And then the Flutter 2 migration for Sendbird SDK is still pre-release. It's not official yet, so I think we need to check on it. I see Jason called the constructor several times by some. Yeah, so Sendbird SDK is, when you call it, it's a singleton. So
I'll just read out the question. If I reply to a file message, I can receive secure URL of parent message, or is it not possible yet? If I reply to a file message. Oh, so if the file message link goes, all right. I'm not entirely sure what's being asked. Richard, do you want to? Oh. Richard, did you want to hop? Oh, perfect. Yes, give us a little bit of clarity.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, not my camera, but this is late. Okay, I send a file message, but I reply the file message and I can receive a security URL. I receive a unique file name, and I don't receive secure URL. I need present the image when I reply messages. For example, in the thread, I need present the file of, for example, if this file is a parent, I need present the image of the parent over the base message, for example. Ya avisan a base message. For example, in this time, I receive the in parent message, in data of parent message in a base message. If this incoming of the handler or message handler, I receive unique the name of this file. For example, I send my file. I receive only my file, but I not receive secure URL, for example. When I respond a message.
Woo, did you catch that? So Richard, maybe I'm not understanding correctly, but are you asking if a secure URL link is sent, is it sent through the parent message handler or sent as like a property of another message?
No, for example, I reply a message. I send a base message, okay? And I reply this base message, but this base message is a type of file message, okay?
Yeah, I got that part. So you apply to a file message, but the later part you don't get the receive the secure URL or parent message, or that part don't get.
Yes.
If you reply to a message, that's either you reply with the file message or the user message. Let's just reply to that message. But what's up with the secure URL? What's the relation?
For example, I send file message, okay? But I reply this file message. The parent message is file message, okay?
All right.
But I reply this file message, but if receive the data of this base, this parent message in this case, I receive only the name of this file. For example, if this file is my file, and not receive secure URL or link to present in screen. No? I read the documentation, but I not found this. Only receive the name of file and not the link.
I think you can access to parent message with the there is a let me check it. I think there is a parent message ID on base message property. Yeah, so if you look at the base message, there is a parent's message ID. And if you reply that message, and if you later someone get the list of the thread message and look at that reply, then you can access that parent's message ID to get the original, the first message of the parent message object. There is also method to get a single message, get message method in under base message.
Yes. Maybe a possibility is consume the same message and get the link of message, for example.
Not sure.
What was the function you were talking about?
The so if you look at the base message and look at the property, there is a parent's message ID.
Message ID. Oh, this one here.
Yeah, that's optional. And if that message has is under, let's say it's applied to a certain message, then that property will be filled with the parent's message ID. So, and then if you want to get the parent's message, then you can use this parent's message ID to get a message.
Yes. For example, if this in this case is a fail message, I can receive parent message text, but in parent message text, I receive the name of this file, but not URL of this file. I can receive URL or I cannot.
Yes, you can use a URL so if you fetch the message with the parent's message ID, then the whole object of the parent's message will come and you can use that URL, which is either secure or not secure. It's up to you to choose what URL to use. I think there is a secure URL for bomb message.
Okay. But in this case, in the documentation says, if it is a file message, the value is the name of the blob file, but it's not a URL.
Cool. Okay, Richard. If you, just so we can move on, we'll reach out to you over email or try to link up with you to have a more technical conversation. It sounds like you've got some interesting conversations that we definitely want to answer. So real quickly, I just wanted to repeat another question from Manav asking about end-to-end encryption. And Mickey, you've answered this already, but we do provide GDPR API and we offer encryption, but not end-to-end encryption for the messages. Right. Is that correct, Mickey?
Correct. So all the messages are encrypted before we send to our server and also stored encrypted on our server. It's just not the end-to-end encryption where the public and the private key is stored between the two devices. That's not available yet.
Jason, do you want to flash your email address again? So if anyone has more questions,
Oh, yes.
We can contact you directly.
Yep.
Yep. So if you guys look into the chat, you can see Jason's email. So if you have more questions or interested to take this further, you can just contact Jason and he'll be happy to help you along the way.
Yep, totally. Okay, yeah, we need to wrap up here. So Manav, again, please send me an email or I'll find your email and we'll get you more information on clarity on the GDPR compliance. Okay, if there are no more questions, then I will let everyone go. I know we're a bit over time, but thank you so much for showing up. This was really fun to do. And thank you, Mickey and Wu, for making yourselves available to answer some really good questions. So yeah, so that completes our episode. Thank you again, and hope to see everyone at the next one.